On the news tonight, Governor Sheriff Borewori announces plan to reconstruct popular ECN Road in Udu. Federal government promised to empower Nigerian armed forces to subdue security challenges. National Industrial Court restrains National Association of Resident Doctors from embarking on nationwide strike. Abroad, China, Russia, and Iran launch week-long joint naval exercise in South African waters. Good evening and welcome to Delta Television Main News tonight. My name is Francis Ofudwe. You can also follow us online at Delta Broadcasting Service Asaba, both on YouTube and Facebook. Now the details. Governor Sheriff Borewori, his administration has plans to reconstruct Electricity Corporation of Nigeria ECN Road in Udu as part of sustained efforts to improve urban mobility, open up communities, and stimulate economic activities across the state. Governor Borewori disclosed this at Oronworu in Udu local government area during the 50th and 19th memorial celebration of late Chief and Madam Palama Akporarenge, parents of All Progressive Congress APC chieftain in the area, Sir Sheba Chris Palama. The governor said the decision became necessary due to persistent complaints over the deplorable condition of the road and the daily hardships faced by residents, commuters, and businesses operating in the access. He highlighted recent achievements of the administration, noting that the Udu Harbour Market, which was first awarded about 18 years ago, will soon be inaugurated, stressing the need for political office holders and community leaders to embrace servant leadership. Governor Borewori noted that no leader was above the people they serve, and added that leadership must be anchored in humility, accountability, and loyalty to the electorate. Speaking on legacy, Governor Borewori commended Sir Sheba Palama for honoring his parents through the memorial celebration, describing the gesture as a noble act that preserved family values and legacy. The governor also emphasized the importance of unity among the people of Udu, pointing out that sustainable development could only be achieved through collective effort and cooperation. The federal government has promised to empower the Nigerian armed forces to subdue the security challenges bedeviling the country. Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirmed the firm resolve of President Bola Tinubu during a special Jumu'ah prayer at the National Mosque, Abuja, ahead of the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day. January 15 is set aside annually by the FG to honor the Armed Forces of Nigeria, AFN. The nation's armed forces recently renamed the January 15 observance as Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day, replacing the former Armed Forces Remembrance Day, with a view to reflecting its dual purpose of honoring serving personnel while embracing fallen heroes. While speaking during the prayer, Senator Shettima acknowledged the sacrifices of its fallen heroes and soldiers who paid a supreme price to safeguard Nigeria's territorial integrity, as well as the lives and properties of their citizens. The federal government has concluded arrangements to formally implement a 40% salary increase for university lecturers as it prepares to sign a new agreement with the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. In a circular from the Federal Ministry of Education, vice chancellors and registrars of federal universities have been invited to signing ceremony scheduled for Wednesday, January 14, at the TED Fund Conference Hall in Abuja. The ministry says the agreement marks a major step toward ending long-standing industrial disputes in the university system, improving teaching and learning conditions, and supporting President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. ASU had accepted the pay rise in December 2025, bringing to an end the renegotiation of the 2009 federal government ASU agreement. The new deal, effective January 1, will run for 3 years and includes improved funding for research and stronger university autonomy. The Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee has responded to concerns raised by audit firm KPMG over Nigeria's newly enacted tax laws, which took effect from January 1. KPMG had earlier highlighted what it described as 5 major errors in the new tax framework. However, in a statement released on social media platform X, the chairman of the committee, Taiwo Oyedele, said the concerns were largely based on misunderstandings of government policy intentions rather than actual errors in the law. The committee said it welcomes constructive feedback and acknowledged that some KPMG's observations on implementation risk and minor clerical issues were useful. It stressed, however, that most of the issues labeled as errors were either misinterpretations of the law, invalid conclusions, or differences in policy preferences. According to the committee, disagreements over policy direction should not be presented as technical flaws, adding that direct consultation would have been more productive in approach as done by other professional firms. Clarifying concerns over the taxation of shares, the committee explained that the new chargeable gain system does not impose a flat 30% tax on share sales. Instead, it applies a graduated rate from 0 to a maximum of 30%, set to reduce to 25%, with about 99% of investors fully exempted. The committee also dismissed fears of market sell-off, noting that the stock market is currently recording historic highs. Justice Emmanuel Sibilim of the National Industrial Code of Nigeria in Abuja has restrained the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, from embarking on its planned nationwide strike scheduled to begin on January 12. The order was issued while the court ruled on a motion filed by the federal government and the Attorney General of the Federation. The motion was argued by the Director of Civil Litigation at the Federal Ministry of Justice, Maimuna Lamishiru, alongside a team of government lawyers. Listed as respondents in the suit are the National Association of Resident Doctors, its national president, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, and the Secretary General, Dr. Shaibu Emmanuel Ibrahim. Earlier, NAT had announced plans to resume its total indefinite and complete strike, also known as TIX 2.0, citing the federal government's failure to implement agreements reached with the association. The decision followed an emergency meeting of its National Executive Council held on January 2. The association said the proposed strike was a result of unmet deadlines on the implementation of a memorandum of understanding signed with the government after the suspension of its last strike on November 29. NAT has also planned nationwide press conferences and center-based protests from January 12 to January 16 to highlight doctors' welfare concerns, insisting that the strike would only be suspended after the full implementation of its demands. These demands include the reinstatement of dismissed resident doctors, payment of salary and promotion arrears, full implementation of professional and specialist allowances, resolution of house officers' salary delays, and progress on collective bargaining agreements. With the court order now in place, the planned industrial action has been temporarily halted, pending further legal proceedings. The National Association of Resident Doctors at the University of Port Harcourt has now joined its national body in demanding the full implementation of a memorandum of understanding signed with the federal government, warning of a possible nationwide strike. Despite a court order restraining the planned action, NAT says the agreement, which led to the suspension of an earlier strike in November 2025, has not been implemented. Speaking in Port Harcourt, Uniport, NAT President Dr. Izin Nikalu said the union reviewed government compliance and found several unresolved issues, including unpaid arrears, delayed promotions and allowances, and poor working conditions. The association warned that failure to act would force resident doctors to resume an indefinite strike from January 12, 2026 across tertiary health institutions nationwide. The controller of the Federal Fire Service in the FCT, Suleiman Anas, has charged newly promoted officers to respond swiftly and professionally to fire and emergency situations. The charge was given during the decoration of 733 officers promoted through the 2025 Senior Promotion Exercise of the Civil Defense, Correctional, Fire and Immigration Board in Abuja. Anas described the exercise as a major morale booster and the highest number of promotions recorded by the FCT command. He assured residents of the Federal Capital Territory of the service's readiness to respond to emergencies and urged the public to promptly use official fire emergency numbers when needed. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has said that the off-cycle governorship elections in Osun and Ekiti State and the Federal Capital Territory FCT area council elections scheduled for February 2026 will serve as an important testing ground for the 2027 elections. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amukbita made this known at the opening of a two-day induction and strategic retreat organized in Lagos. He stressed that while the 2027 general election remained its ultimate goal, it must first successfully navigate several key electoral milestones. According to him, the induction and retreat session was designed to induct newly appointed commission members and resident electoral commissioners into INEC's institutional framework, administrative structure, communication processes, and ethical standards. It reaffirmed its commitment to delivering elections that are free, fair, credible, transparent, and inclusive as it intensifies institutional preparations towards the 2027 general election. The INEC chair stressed that the Commission is deliberately strengthening its leadership capacity, operational systems, and institutional coherence in response to rising public expectations of the electoral process. He emphasized that early planning, strategic coordination, and strict adherence to the rule of law will be crucial to the credibility of the 2027 general election. He outlined 5 non-negotiable pillars guiding the Commission's mandate, which are elections free from interference, fairness to all political parties and candidates, credibility in the eyes of Nigerians and international community, transparency across all stages of the electoral process, and inclusivity to ensure that no eligible Nigerian is disenfranchised. The Nigerian Air Force has carried out precision airstrikes on the Agbagajiri in the Tubuki Triangle of the Sambisa Forest, targeting Boko Haram and ISWAP hideouts in Borno State. According to NAF spokesman Air Commodore Ehimen Ejodame, the operation was conducted on January 8, following credible intelligence on terrorist activities in the area. The airstrikes destroyed insurgent structures and logistics facilities while several terrorists were neutralized. Ground troops later advanced into the area and confirmed the success of the joint air and land operation. Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Sunday Aneke said the mission reflects the Air Force's commitment to intelligence-driven and precise operations aimed at denying terrorists safe havens while protecting civilians. The Delta State Police Command has arrested a notorious kidnapped suspect and recovered a cache of sophisticated firearms, including AK-47 and K2 rifles. Briefing newsmen, the State Commissioner of Police, Adeshola Aina, said the arrest was made following the intelligence-led operations across the 3 states. The State Police Commissioner Adeshola revealed that the suspect was first apprehended in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, and later led police to Bayelsa State, where one AK-47 rifle was recovered. The operation continued in Patani, which yielded the recovery of another AK-47, 2 K2 rifles, 2 pump-action guns, and additional fire ammunition and firearms. The operation comes just days after the Commissioner assumed office as the 23rd Commissioner of Police for the state. The police boss said the command was determined to sustain the security momentum of 2005 and assure that efforts to rid the state of kidnappers and violent crimes will continue. He said that the suspect remained in custody as investigations continue to track down other members of the criminal syndicate. Still to come, China, Russia, and Iran launch week-long joint naval exercise in South African waters. Stay with us. You're watching Delta Television Main News at 8. The Global Scene is next as we join our World News Desk.
China, Russia, and Iran have launched a week-long joint naval exercise in South Africa waters in what Pretoria described as a BRICS Plus operation to ensure the safety of shipping and maritime economic activities. The drills, named Exercise We for Peace 2026, involve navies from the expanded BRICS bloc, which now includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. Military officials said the exercise focused on joint maritime safety operations and interoperability drills, with Brazil, Egypt, and Ethiopia participating as observers. South Africa routinely conducts naval exercises with China and Russia, but the timing comes amid heightened tensions with the United States, whose President Donald Trump has labeled BRICS policies as anti-American and previously threatened additional trade tariffs on member nations. Domestically, South Africa's opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, criticized the drills, saying they contradict the country's stated neutrality and risk making South Africa a pawn in international power struggles. Lieutenant Colonel Mfo Metubula, acting spokesperson for joint operations, emphasized that all BRICS Plus members were invited to participate in the exercise. The United Nations Security Council is set to meet on Monday to discuss the escalating situation in Kyiv. The announcement comes after Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, urged residents to leave the capital following mass heating outages caused by recent Russia strikes. The attacks have left half of the city's residential buildings without heat amid sub-zero temperatures. Ukrainian ambassador to the United Nations, Andriy Melnik, condemned the attacks, describing Russia's action as reaching an appalling new level of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, the Kremlin confirmed it fired an Oreshnik ballistic missile on Ukraine for the second time since the conflict began in February 2022. The international community now watches closely as the United Nations Security Council prepares to address the crisis on Monday.
Let's join our Business News Desk for stories in business and the economy.
The Naira recorded the highest depreciation against the United States dollar at the offshore foreign exchange market to end the week on a negative note. The Central Bank of Nigeria data showed that the Naira extended its dip yesterday to 1,423 Naira 17 kobo against the dollar, down from 1,419 Naira 72 kobo traded on Thursday. This represents a 3 naira 45 kobo depreciation against the dollar in a day-to-day basis, the highest in the week under review and in 2026 so far. Meanwhile, at the black market, the naira remained at 1,419 naira per dollar yesterday, the same rate recorded on Thursday. In the other week, the naira recorded 3 gains and 2 losses against the US dollar and other currencies. The development comes amid the continued rise in the country's external reserves, which hits $45.67 billion as of January 8, 2026. The Nigeria stock market continued its bullish streak, with investors raking in 138 billion naira in gains. The market capitalization rose by 0.13% to close at 102.822 trillion naira, marking the 19th consecutive positive session. Key gainers included NIMET International, May and Baker, and eTransat International, while International Energy Insurance lead the losers, shedding nearly 10%. Trading activity slowed with 649 million shares exchanged, led by Charms and Linkage Assurance. Zenith Bank recorded the highest value, traded at 1.51 billion naira. The all-share index advanced by 214.80 points, closing at 160,806.56, reflecting growing investor confidence in the market.
Let's join our sports news desk for stories and happenings in the world of sports.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria have booked their place in the semi-finals of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations following a convincing 2-0 victory over Algeria in today's quarter-final clash at the Stade de Marrakech. Nigeria dominated proceedings from the early stages, pressing high and forcing the Algerians into their own half. Early chances fell to Victor Osimhen and Frank Onyeka, while Ademola Lookman tested Algerian goalkeeper Lucas Zidane, with Nigeria's first shot on target in the 23rd minute. The Super Eagles came close to taking the lead in the 29th minute, but Calvin Bassey's effort from a Lookman cross was cleared off the line. Akko Adams also missed a clear opportunity late in the first half as Nigeria went into the break goalless despite their dominance. The breakthrough came 2 minutes into the second half when Victor Osimhen rose highest to head home Onyemachi's Bruno's cross, giving Nigeria a deserved lead in the 47th minute. The Galatasaray striker goal was his 4th of the tournament. Nigeria doubled their advantage 10 minutes later as Osimhen turned provider, setting up Akko Adams, who calmly rounded the goalkeeper before finishing in the 59th minute. Algeria struggled to create clear chances, with Super Eagles goalkeeper Sterling Nwabali largely untroubled. Their best effort came in the 80th minute, but failed to trouble the Nigeria defense. Akko Adams nearly added a third late on, but his effort struck the post. The match ended 2-0 in favor of Nigeria as the Super Eagles sealed a place in the AFCON semi-finals and continued their impressive run in the competition. The Nigeria Premier Football League (NPFL) has called a peace meeting between Remo Stars and Ikorodu City. The meeting is to defuse a growing feud ahead of the resumption of the second stanza. The league body urged both teams to send 2 top-level managers, no lower than team manager, to a reconciliation session at the league's headquarters in Abuja on Tuesday, 13 January. The NPFL stated this in a letter signed and addressed to both teams by the Chief Operating Officer, Davison Owumi. According to the letter, the NPFL believed that the growing acrimony between the 2 geographically brother clubs can engender an atmosphere of peace and sportsmanship. The dispute, which started last season, resurfaced after Ikorodu City's last match against Remo Stars in Lagos. Remo Stars will do battle with Ikorodu City in the return leg at the Remo Stars Stadium in Ikenne when the second stanza resumes.
And now for a rundown of our major stories on our bulletin this evening. Governor Sheriff Oborevori has announced plans by his administration to reconstruct the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria (ECN) road in Udu as part of sustained effort to improve urban mobility, open up communities, and stimulate economic activities across the state. Governor Barrow disclosed this at the Oromoro in Udu local government area during the 50th and 19th memorial celebration of late Chief and Madam Palama, parents of All Progressive Congress APC chieftain in the area, Sir Sheba Chris Palama. Justice Emmanuel Sibilim of the National Industrial Code of Nigeria in Abuja has restrained the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, from embarking on its planned nationwide strike scheduled to begin on January 12. The order was issued while the court ruled on a motion filed by the federal government and the Attorney General of the Federation. In the abroad, we reported that China, Russia, and Iran launched week-long joint naval exercise in South African waters. And that's our news. Many thanks for watching. Remember, you can follow us on news online on Facebook and YouTube, both at Delta Broadcasting Service Asaba, or visit our website www.dpsasaba.com. My name is Francis Ofulue. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.